Hello, welcome back to the garage. Gerald here with you, of course. And winter storms, school cancellations. But you know what? That does not stop awards season from going full throttle, full speed ahead. But let's look at a calendar together, shall we? By the way, Happy New Year. Did we do that already? It's 2026. The big 2-6. Every week leading up to the 98th Academy Awards, which this year are on March 15th, which, by the way, Academy members or board members, which you don't watch this, but if you do, that's way too late. I understand that there's a lot of other stuff that comes, and this is the finale of award season, but we got to do something. We got to reel this in a little bit. It shouldn't be happening like at Easter, okay? Every week, I'm going to give you my updated power rankings leading up to the Academy Awards. I also keep all the categories updated on the Award Expert app, which, in fairness, is my predictions, which is a little bit different than what these videos are going to be. But please follow me over there if you want to see my real-time updates, as I usually, at least once a week, go in there and move stuff around and overthink as many possible categories as I can. So these videos that you're going to get over the course of the next 5 weeks is the power rankings. As you guys know, I do this all year. I actually start my power rankings videos. I believe the first one showed up in May on the channel here. So if you're following me and you're interested to see what's going to get nominated next year for the 2027 Oscars, those will start popping up in a couple months here on the channel. These are not my personal predictions, although if they differ in any way from what I think the power ranking is, I will of course talk about it, because I think you have to factor in momentum a little bit, and you have to kind of foresee that there's going to be some kind of curveball or a wave is going to crash in the wrong direction and knock you off your surfboard. Man, I always go really crazy with these analogies. I apologize. So I will just be going through the top of the line categories on this video, starting us out with the screenplay categories. So for adapted screenplay, this is what I think we're looking at. Those, of course, are your 5 nominees. One Battle After Another, Paul Thomas Anderson. When it comes to screenplay, especially since they split it up and adapted an original, I mean, if this did not go to PTA, it would be literally one of the biggest shocks in Oscars history. Even if you think director is up for grabs and a coin flip, which we'll get there in a moment and I'll let you know what I think. But even if you think that, Ryan Coogler is going to get his Oscar at a minimum for original screenplay, and PTA is going to get his at a minimum for adapted screenplay. This is it. And then moving forward, of course, to original screenplay, like I said, Sinners, Ryan Coogler. You know, I had thought there was a moment in time when I thought that Jafar Panahi and team for It Was Just an Accident could upset in really a couple categories, but this one specifically. Now, he didn't get nominated for director. It didn't make it into the Best Picture 10. So if they are going to honor Jafar Panahi and the narrative and the struggle that he's dealing with for being a filmmaker, it would have to be here. And I don't think it's going to be. Now, it could be an international feature, and we won't be touching on that one on this video. But unfortunately, I think he might not get that one either. So it just really hurts my heart, honestly, that Jafar Panahi and It Was Just an Accident might walk away with nothing this award season from the Academy, or really any televised precursor. It's just crazy to me. But like I said on the previous slide, I think this is Ryan Coogler's. I mean, even if he doesn't win director, even if the movie doesn't win picture, even if it doesn't get an acting prize or casting or anything like that, I think you can 1000% head to a betting site and put Ryan Coogler down as your pick to win original screenplay this year. It Was Just an Accident would be the number 2, but it's Sinners and a runaway. Gets a little more interesting as we go through the slides here. I'll talk about this one a little bit. If you guys notice, I've had the little Academy Award or the Oscar icon there next to my prediction. So in those first two, I should have mentioned that. I apologize. In fact, let me go back real quick. I will do you guys a disservice. I do think Ryan Coogler is going to win. It's also my prediction. That's what the Oscar statue means. I do think PTA is going to win, and it's also my prediction. And looking at supporting actress, this is the first time where there's a little bit of a shakeup in my mind. I will firmly say that Teyana Taylor from One Battle After Another is the current frontrunner. She is in the power rankings currently on February 4th, number 1. That's almost objectively a fact. There's not really any way to kind of refute that. Until you start thinking about your personal predictions and you start kind of skewing the power ranking based on what you think might happen. So in doing predictions, especially at this stage before we have DGA and PGA specifically, but even more so from an acting standpoint, with the exception of the one that she won, which was the Golden Globe, and she did not win the Critics' Choice Award that went to Amy Madigan, who is my number 2. So when you're thinking of 1 and 2, based on what we have in front of us, that's the 1 and 2. Also, when you look at the regional critics groups and the awards that have been racked up there, even though I don't put a ton of stock in those when it comes to like the industry, academy, and guilds, but nonetheless, if you're going to have something to base it off of other than just like a hunch, that's the 1 and 2. So in having that Oscar statue next to Wunmi Mosaku, which I am currently thinking is going to be the winner for supporting actress this year, there is logic behind it, but it is all hypothetical. It's based on a hunch. It's trying to predict the vibes on the circuit, the chatter on Twitter or in various trades or interviews that these folks are doing, podcasts that I'm listening to. Like, what are people talking about? What has a momentum? Where is there a shift in kind of the norm? Because I think One Battle and Teyana Taylor in that supporting frontrunner status is kind of the norm currently. Will that change? Where will it change? The reason I'm putting Wunmi, who, even though she's at number 3 in the current power rankings, as my pick to win supporting actress right now, is I see her being very successful at the BAFTA. I've talked about this before. Now, yes, she's British. A lot of people have come at me in my comments about that. That's not why I'm picking her, but there's no way that we can, you should not refute that the BAFTAs definitely have a bias towards British actors. They just do, historically. So that is not going to hurt her, I guess is what I'm saying. It's only going to help her situation. She was nominated for a much lesser seen horror film called His House that, frankly, nobody saw. She's also been nominated for television there. She's won there at the BAFTAs. So they know her. They're familiar with her. I think that's going to help her in the voting, just them seeing her name, whereas a lot of the BAFTA voters might not even know who Teyana Taylor is outside of seeing her in one battle after another. But also Sinners, for all intents and purposes, overperformed at the BAFTA. I honestly thought it might suffer a blow there, being that it's a genre film that is pretty Americanized in its narrative. I thought maybe it wouldn't do maybe half the number of nominations that it got, but it got a bunch, and it didn't max out, which a lot of people think of that as underperforming. But you got to remember the BAFTAs don't do all the categories that we got at the Oscars. And of course, it got 16 nominations there. It really got everything that it got at the Oscars, with the exception of supporting actor, of course, because Delroy Lindo did not get in, Miles Caton did not get in. But that's the only category that is not really present at the BAFTAs, which to me doesn't show a weakness in any way whatsoever. If anything, it shows much more strength than I thought it would have with that body. But I think if she wins the BAFTA, and this is not even considering if she's successful at the SAG or the Actor Awards, because she could actually have a shot there as well. It really is going to depend on the strength of Sinners among the guilds and among these various televised bodies. Do the nominations, does the love that they showered onto Sinners so far translate to wins? We don't know. I don't know. I suspect that it will. And I think one of the benefactors of that almost immediately would be Wunmi. So I think if she's successful at the SAG, that's great, but I'm not even considering that because I think Amy Madigan's probably going to be the SAG winner. When I do those predictions, that's probably where I'm going to fall based on her narrative. They love nominating and recognizing horror performances at the SAG. So Amy Madigan has a lot going for her with that body, but I don't know that she'll be able to go anywhere past that. Whereas Wunmi doesn't really need the SAG if she gets the BAFTA. Okay? If she gets that, I think 3 days later, Oscar voting opens. She will be front and center, assuming she gives a great speech. We know they love Sinners. I think it could carry her enough. The momentum could be strong enough at the right time that the surge and the wave could overtake somebody like Teyana Taylor. Because if Teyana does not win at SAG and she does not win at BAFTA, she only has the Golden Globe. And that was the first weekend in January. And we're going to be going all the way to, I think, early March when Oscar voting ends. 2 months of no FaceTime with the voters. I mean, of course, interviews and talk shows and stuff, but no FaceTime on stage, emotional speeches. People, I'm recognizing she's at number 1. I'm recognizing she's number 1, but I think people get locked into the difference between like what the vibe on the circuit is right this second and what a prediction is. Let me put it this way. If you want to have fun, or if I want to have fun, making predictions like this, until we have all the data points from the various precursors, you got to take swings. You got to think to yourself, where could this go awry? Because it's not going to all go according to plan. I'll tell you that right now. So one battle after another might be the front runner in several categories, but I don't know that it's going to win every single one of them. It's not like definitive. And I think this is one of the major categories that is still up for grabs. So that's why I have Wunmi Mosaku as my current predicted winner for supporting actress, even though I think Teyana is the clear frontrunner at the current moment, followed by Amy Madigan. And then you have the two sentimental value ladies rounding out the 5 there for supporting actress power rankings wise. You know, Inga Ibsdottir Lilius, Inga has a very similar trajectory to an upset win at the Oscars if she does what I said I think Wunmi is going to do at the BAFTA. I just think that little extra ingredient of her being British and having that heritage and history with that body specifically will give her enough of a nudge over somebody like Inga at the BAFTAs. But that's another scenario that could very easily, I could see playing out. If Inga wins the BAFTA, then voting opens, and then she goes on to upset for the Oscar. That could also happen. Right now, I think it's a little more likely for Wunmi, which is why she has the icon next to her name there. But I wanted to explain myself. I'm not telling you guys this is definitely going to happen. I'm just having fun with my predictions. That's something that I could see happening, and that's the logic behind it. Now, looking at supporting actor, this one's a little bit easier, although it is a bit of a toss-up category. It really is. You know, this one's funny too, because when I was thinking about doing power rankings, which I try to be like objectively ranking them, like what people would generally say right now, who stands the best chance. And I think it's Stellan Skarsgård. He's also my pick to win in this category. That does also hinge on the success of him at the BAFTA, because I also think he's going to win that, much like I said with Wunmi earlier. If he wins that, he already has the Globe. He wasn't even nominated at the SAG, but then again, they didn't pay attention to any international films over there, including sentimental value. So it's almost like you could take that off the table as like a negative, because nothing got in there that would be in that camp. You could also use the argument that the One Battle boys, Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro, which I think are essentially tied right now. I really didn't know who to put at 2, who to put at 3. Sean Penn had success with the European awards recently, so I was like, all right, well, that's an international body. They gave it to him. Benicio showed up a ton in preseason with regional critics groups, but then has kind of not been present a lot in terms of wins lately. So they're kind of like evened out now, and they're kind of horizontal, perpendicular to each other. So that's kind of a tie. But right now it's Sean Penn and Benicio 2 and 3. But you could argue they cancel each other out, right? Or you could say that. So people love Benicio del Toro as a person. Previous nominee with the Academy, previous winner. Sean Penn, same thing, but his like kind of personality and image in the public eye is definitely not as favorable as Benicio's. So Sean Penn might get some votes based on the craft and based on what he did as an actor with Colonel Lockjaw, but Benicio might get some for that also, but maybe more for the likability of him as a person. So at the end of the day, if somebody gets 60% of the One Battle vote and somebody gets 40, they're going to essentially cancel each other out, because they're going to be battling for basically a number 2 or number 3 spot. And if Stellan Skarsgård has the support of the international voting body, and we'll know if he gets the BAFTA, like, okay, he's got that support. But even if he doesn't, he still could. That's why I think it's a little more likely that he wins, but also why I think he's kind of in the lead right now, even without the SAG nomination. I've got Jacob Elordi and Delroy Lindo rounding out the 5. You look at this slide, and honestly, any of these guys could win the Oscar, really, right now. I don't really know what I'm going to predict when we get into that final week before they give out the awards, because, I mean, I could see any of these dudes winning, and they all have a legitimate shot. They all have somewhat of an awards resume, I guess with the exception of maybe Delroy Lindo. But what Lindo's going to have that you can't put on paper and you can't put on a resume is the momentum, and is the swing, the surge, because that was, myself included, one of the most fulfilling, memorable things that I've seen on nominations morning in a long time. Such a pleasant surprise for him to get this nomination after being snubbed for Da 5 Bloods and being in acting for like over 40 years with nothing to show for it from the Academy is just insanity. And they finally gave it to him, and he was so great in Sinners, and they loved that movie. It overperformed, as we said. So I love that he got the nomination. I just don't know that he can win unless, we'll get to some other slides here, Sinners takes over the Oscars. If Sinners starts to overpower in categories as we go through the night, especially ones that is up against One Battle, technical wise, then watch out. That could be a Delroy like out of nowhere situation, right? And a lot of people have used the Marcia Gay Harden analogy, and I can see that. And that would be why, because this category has not been locked up. You had Elordi at the CCA, you had Stellan at the Globe. What if Paul Mescal wins the BAFTA? He's not even in here at the Oscar, right? You literally won't know. And then the SAG, Stellan Skarsgård's not there. Sean Penn would be the most like SAG-ish kind of win. But yeah, I mean, it could be a different winner every televised show going into the Oscars. So it could be a Marcia Gay Harden situation, and it could be Delroy Lindo. I said it was a little bit easier than supporting actress, but when you're trying to rank like who's most likely, any of these guys can win. I think right now, Stellan Skarsgård is most likely if the success at the BAFTA pans out like I think it will, which is also why I have him as my current predicted winner. And looking at lead actress, this one really doesn't need a lot of commentary. I just wrote a script for a video I'm going to be doing in the next week or so for the 10 worst snubs from nominations morning, and Chase Infinity should be on this list. A lot of people are going to say, well, she's not a lead actress, right? But that was what she was campaigned as. So I don't get into the whole category fraud thing because that happens every single year. Every year there's somebody that should be in supporting, but they're in lead, or should be in lead, but they're in supporting. I mean, every year. So this year is no different. This slide, not so much. These are all lead actresses. But Chase Infinity should be in this group, especially with the success of One Battle and how strong that film is. And I think she was a pivotal piece to that story, and it's a bummer. And the fact that One Battle and Sinners are the two movies that are stronger than Hamnet at the Oscars. Everything else is Hamnet's probably third. So Jessie Buckley has no issue here. She's also the perceived winner, perceived frontrunner all season. She's been winning literally everywhere. Even if she were to lose to Chase Infinity at like the BAFTA, right, which I don't think is going to happen, but let's just say that did happen, she's still fine because she's not up against Chase Infinity here. So that would have been the only way that I would have felt like Jessie Buckley's path would have been a little bumpy to get there. But she has literally no competition in this category. She's going to win the Oscar. She's also my pick. Rose Byrne, and Renate Reinsve are probably performances that I enjoy more. But Rose Byrne, that film has no other nominations. It's just not going to happen. It's a rare thing. It's happened like 3 or 4 times in the history of the Oscars that somebody's won an acting award when their film had no other nominations. I can think of Kathy Bates right off the top of my head for Misery, or like Ruth Gordon from Rosemary's Baby, but that was back in the 60s, right? So, I mean, this category is a runaway. It's a sweeper, I think. I don't think Jessie Buckley is going to lose all season. And it's a terrific performance. Well-deserved. Looking at lead actor, I've still got Timothée Chalamet in the number 1 spot, and also as my current prediction to win. Not really straying away from the power rankings too much right now, with the exception of the swing I took earlier with supporting actress. But I will tell you that if the Josh Safdie news, which, was unfortunate, and I hated it, and I still hate it, and I haven't really read into it since that first day that it broke, so I don't know, what he said or what's come to light or been confirmed or any of that stuff. But nonetheless, when there's an Oscar movie or campaign or performance or whatever in this spotlight, it's susceptible to all this stuff coming out, right? And that's what happened, and the story itself is horrible, and at least what I do know of it, it's, what happened to that person on the movie set is much more important than whatever happens to Marty Supreme at the Oscars. So I don't want to get lost in that conversation, but at the same time, we can't lie to ourselves that these types of controversies or happenings might change the race. Now, the residual effect, would Timothy be affected by that? Even though a lot of people, in the last few weeks have definitely been saying, before that story broke for sure, they were saying, this is Timmy's year, right? He's going to win this year. Marty Supreme, he's doing it finally, which is crazy to say at 30 years old, but I still think that's the case. Now, if One Battle After Another does start to plow through the Oscars and does, overtake Sinners in a lot of those categories, and it is the clear-cut number 1 film, then maybe Leo does come along with that, because just like people are saying Timothée Chalamet needs an Oscar based on, recent history, they're also saying that Leo should have a second, or in some cases, multiple Oscars, which I happen to agree with. So which one of those narratives is going to win in the end? That's what it's really going to come down to. Right now, I think it's Timothée Chalamet's. The SAG could be a hiccup for him because he won that last year. Do they give it to him again, back to back? Maybe. I probably am going to predict them to do it. But maybe they don't. Maybe they go, oh, we just gave it to him. He's already winning. He's good. He's fine, right? And then they give it to, Leo or Ethan Hawke, perhaps. And then whoever they do give it to, if it's not Timothée Chalamet, that's the competition. And then what's going to happen at the BAFTA, right? I think Timmy could win that too, but you just don't know. You don't know how it's going to shake out. You don't know if the Josh Safdie news is going to have an effect. Right now, I think Timothy, though, is at least it's all hypothetical, so there's no reason to take him out of that top spot currently, at least until we see what starts shaking out on the circuit. I do think Leo, based on his name and the strength of that film, is number 2. So as I was talking to you guys, I realized Wagner Moura's name was misspelled, so I just went in and fixed it. But I do have him as the number 3, really the international piece. I think gives him a bit of a leg up there. The film is really surging and it's overperforming in a lot of places, including the BAFTAs, places that we just didn't expect it to show up, and it showed up. So I'm excited for him and for that film and for Brazil. I'm so happy for that country when they have a film in the race and they just know how to bring the passion. So I think he is in that top 3. Now, if Ethan Hawke were to win the SAG, which I think he's a threat to do there, he could be in that number 2 spot like overnight, like in a second. He's got the name, he's got the narrative, previous nominee at the Academy, never won, in a film adjacent to movies, right? Michael B. Jordan, also a possibility. I do think he's probably 5th most likely though, but that doesn't mean it's impossible because he's in the strongest film in terms of nominations, breaking the record, right? You know, and he's essentially the face of that film, playing dual roles, not gimmicky. You know, he's doing it like real shit here. He's acting on 2 different levels, really a third, if you think about his turn in the evil side of one of the brothers without giving too much away. So this is a tough one. This is one that, you know, I told you I was going to be doing these videos week to week. This is one that each week could kind of maybe, you know, 1, 2, 4, 2, 1, 5. I mean, you know, especially once these other shows start to play out. Right now, I think it's Timothy as the most likely to win, and he would also be my prediction currently. Maybe we'll know when I do my next video next week for this, because, you know, right now I've got PTA winning the Oscar, also being my prediction. Ryan Coogler, Chloe Zhao, Joachim Trier, and Josh Safdie would round out the 5. I don't think there's anybody competing for this that's not named Paul or Ryan. It's going to be one of those 2 dudes. You know, PTA has been winning the majority of the director prizes, although as of late, Ryan Coogler's been coming on a little bit. He's still behind PTA in the critics groups and the circles, regional groups, but he is getting his share of wins in the director category. Obviously, 16 nominations is nothing to, you know, look away from. So they have that in their corner as well. This is going to be a momentum thing, and the DGA is going to be giant this year. Absolutely, profoundly huge when we find out who the DGA gave their Best Director award to, which we'll find out in a few days. I still think it's PTA. By the way, go ahead and give you my DGA prediction. It's Paul Thomas Anderson's my prediction to win at the DGA. But, man, what do you do? I'll ask you in the comments. What do you do if Ryan Coogler wins DGA? What does that do for you? I mean, if you make predictions. Because honestly, I don't know what I would do. I don't know if I would then still leave PTA winning director and maybe give Sinners picture. Maybe I give Coogler director, One Battle picture. I don't know what it would throw me in a tailspin predictions wise. I don't even know if it would change the power ranking necessarily to knock PTA off number 1 if DGA went to Coogler, you know, because I mean, yeah, it probably would, because that's a huge precursor for director. So, man, what would you do? Let me know down below. Right now, I think it's PTA's. If DGA goes another way this weekend, then next week's slide may look different, but we'll see. And then last but not least, in keeping with that same theme, you know, if it's funny because I haven't done them yet, but when I do my PGA nominations for who wins the Producers Guild Award, I think that might be Sinners. And there's often crossover there, but not all the time. I just recently did a video about that in the last 10 years, how many times they've crossed up. And it's not every single year, but it is a pretty important precursor, and it does tell a story, especially recently in the last few years. So it's something you want to have for sure, but you don't have to have it. So if Sinners wins there, I still think One Battle can win Best Picture. But if Sinners gets DGA and PGA, I would be flabbergasted, honestly. You know, I mean, PTA is still going to get screenplay like we mentioned, but wouldn't that be crazy if we went to the Oscars? He's got 14 nominations in his career. One Battle's been, you know, considered the front runner really since the summer, and everybody loves it and is, you know, well revered, regarded. Every single person you talk to, myself included, it's PTA's time. This, and then we get to the Oscars and he gets 1 for a screenplay. Wouldn't that be crazy? That seems almost surreal that would happen. I'm not making this prediction right now, but I will tell you that if Sinners and Coogler were to win DGA and PGA, both guilds, and WGA too, right, for screenplay, I mean, that's probably what I would do, because that's like almost like you can't ignore that. Now, One Battle could still win on Oscars night and be a surprise, you know, a la Parasite. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like I would have to predict Sinners at that point. This is very similar to what I told you to hit me in the comments for the previous slide. If Coogler wins director, what if Sinners wins PGA? Which honestly, I think it might be the front runner to do that based on the box office return, etc. So, you know, it's a PGA type film. I don't know, man. It's tough. Right now, I'm banking on Sinners winning PGA, but PTA getting DGA. And then you have the split. It's weird because it's like neither one of them need both of them. But if somebody gets both of them, the other person's kind of screwed, you know, at least in my head. So I would love to hear what you think. This is the rankings I currently have. I did switch Sentimental Value and Hamnet. You know, Hamnet showed a little bit of weakness to me at the BAFTAs. It was nothing crazy. Those two are essentially tied, to be honest with you. You can't really rate. After those first 4, I don't think anything, I'll say below the top 3, stand a chance to win. I don't. I think it's One Battle or Sinners for Best Picture. Sentimental Value would win in a kind of international uprising in voting, and the ranked voting benefiting it. If there was a lot of people that didn't like Sinners in One Battle, and they were ranked at 9th or 10th, and a lot of people like Sentimental Value in their top 3, then the ranked voting may help it out. I don't think that's going to happen, but it could happen. But other than that, I think it's either One Battle or Sinners this year. Right now, I've still got One Battle in that driver's seat. Sorry, F1. Somebody else is at the wheel right now. And it is also my current prediction for Best Picture. This could change. The only big swing that I'm taking kind of outside the lanes, if you will, on this video on February 4th is for Wound Me in Supporting Actress. But that's where I'm at right now on this weekly Power Rankings video I'm going to do for you guys. Once again, just a reminder, you can follow me over on the Award Expert app. All the other categories I don't do on these kind of like smaller weekly videos, but I will do that for my final predictions video as we get closer to the Oscars. But in the meantime, you can follow me on there and see my predictions in all the categories, including the Oscar shorts. I'm actually going through those because I was able to get access to quite a few of them. So I'm going to put up an Oscar Shorts video probably next week after I have a chance to watch all 15 of them, and I'll give you kind of mini reviews and who I think is going to win in those categories as well, because those categories always seem to trip all of us up. But I am watching all of them this year, and it's a really good crop of short films. And I want to let everybody know, if they don't already know, that channel memberships are wide open. So come on in, because I do all kinds of brainstorm sessions and live streams just for my members to kind of come up with these rankings and figure out what the hell I'm going to do. I do editing sessions where I edit my videos together with my members with me, asking me questions. And they get all my videos early. You get all kinds of custom emotes and badges and all kinds of stuff, because I am a generous, generous guy. And so are you guys. And thank you so much to my current members. But I appreciate it. Just click join down below if you want to read all about that. Let me know down below what you thought of these power rankings. Am I off? What do you think is in the driver's seat right now? I'm so sorry I keep doing the F1 analogy. I will see you guys out here next time very soon in the garage.